This is Jeff Wilson. What branch of service were you in?
I enlisted in the Army.
What were your dates of service?
Went in, enlisted, and went in basic training in 1991 and ETS'd in 1994.
Why did you enlist?
I was going nowhere. I went into school for 1 year after high school, thinking I was going to do college, but college wasn't for me. So I got a job after that 1 year of college. So I was just working, wasn't going nowhere, kind of getting into some trouble, running around, having fun, and just needed some responsibilities, stability in my life and everything. I thought maybe joining the Army was the best thing I could do at that point.
Why did you decide to join the Army? Like, what made, like, that specific?
That specific branch
Yeah.
in general. Well, I didn't want to join the Navy. That was for sure. Now the Army, I guess there was no pretty much the first recruiter I went to talk to at that time, and he kind of talked me into it. I kind of liked what he was saying, so I went that route.
How old were you when you decided to enlist?
I was 21.
Do you remember your first days in service?
Oh yes. Yep, I was real nervous when I got the basic training. Real nervous. And then they kind of relax you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then right when you get to your unit, then you get off a cattle truck and all the drill sergeants are there blasting you. And so you're pretty scared again.
Do you remember, like, driving to go to the airport, or did you fly there? Or did you go on bus?
My parents drove me to the airport in Lincoln. I flew out of Lincoln.
How did you feel when you were driving to the airport?
I was actually calm. I was ready to go. I was pretty relaxed until I got to where I was reception there at Fort Sill. And then all the nerves hit me at that point.
What type of work did you do when you were in the service?
I was a forward observer. Basically, we work with infantry divisions and stuff. We call in artillery fire and adjust the rounds onto the target, or the eyes of the field artillery.
Did you get to pick that job?
Yeah.
What made you pick it?
It just sounded like it'd be a fun job to do. You know, you go take your ASVAB test, and then they give you a list of jobs that you qualify for or that they have openings for at that time. And that just seemed like it was going to be a really fun job, calling in artillery fire and blowing stuff up. So I kind of picked that job in general.
So where did you serve at when you were in the military?
I went to basic and AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. From there, I went over to Germany, at Wertheim, Germany. Spent about 8 or 9 months there. We deactivated that unit, shut that unit down. They sent me to Fort Ord, California, Monterey. I was there for roughly a year, and we shut that unit down, that base down, and we all transferred up to Fort Lewis, Washington. I finished out there at Fort Lewis, Washington.
How was the life when you were there? Like, did you enjoy it, or did you?
Oh, I've enjoyed it, especially at Fort Lewis. Did a lot of fishing up there. It's beautiful country, a lot of lakes and everything. So when you're not working or training, you know, you go fishing or hang out with your friends and stuff. Go run around. Seattle wasn't too far, so we were able to go to Seattle quite a bit.
Were the rules strict there, or like, did you kind of feel like you had a lot of freedom?
You have a lot of freedom when you're in. Basically, it's like once your job is over at the end of the day, you can go and do whatever you need to do at the time. You know, you have your weekends off, so you can travel on the weekends, you know, as long as you're back Monday for formation, in the morning for PT.
Did you ever struggle, like, with, like, going out on the weekends and then having to go back on Monday?
It's always a struggle on Monday morning because that's when we do PT at like 5:30 in the morning, so we're running or doing push-ups and sit-ups. It's always a struggle. Every morning's a struggle when it comes to that for us.
What kind of uniforms were issued to you?
We had our BDUs, which are camouflage uniform that we wear on a regular daily basis. We had a PT uniform with sweats, your t-shirt, your shorts that you wear. And they also gave us our dress greens at the time. I believe now they're called dress blues in the Army. I'm not sure, but they were dress greens back then.
What dwellings were provided?
I lived in barracks. We had barracks for us. If you were married, you were able to have out, either on base or off base housing for your families, but I was single, no kids, no nothing. I was living in the barracks with everybody. Most of the guys were all in the barracks.
So you didn't serve during a war, but you served, like you didn't go into combat, you served while it was going on?
I enlisted during the first Gulf War.
Okay. You didn't get to see any, like...
No, I wasn't
action.
in action anywhere, no.
Tell me about the relationships that you, like, had when you were there.
Oh, you become, they call it a brotherhood. It's a bond with the people we served with, and we still are together. A lot of us sometimes see each other. I was up in South Dakota 2 years ago and saw an old Army friend up there, but we all got like Facebook groups that my group that I was in Germany with, we all hang out on Facebook, talk, and same thing with my units that I was with here in the stateside. It's just all get together on Facebook and chat and talk, and a lot of times we get together, we always say we need to have a reunion, but that's never came about yet. But if the people that are close to the surrounding states, we try to get together and see each other.
What was your most interesting experience?
I personally liked it over in Germany. I had a blast over there. It was beautiful. It's a different country. You got the rivers, castles, and everything. The experience of just being overseas, I would have never been able to do that if it wasn't for being in the Army.
What was the most exhausting experience?
Oh, shutting down all these units, and it's a lot of work to close a base down, and then get the vehicles all ready to ship and send and whatnot. So it was exhausting and a lot of work.
Did you ever get to go home while you were there?
I went home. I think I took leave once while I was in 3 years, and I was gone for 1.5 years before I came back the first time. And your dad actually picked me up at the airport.
Do you really?
The first time I came back, yep.
Did you guys did he think you changed?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure he probably thought I did.
Did you feel like you personally changed?
Yeah, I was a lot more mature. I've grown up a lot.
So going off of that, what did you get out of it? What did being in the military teach you?
More or less, in general, respect. You have a lot more respect after being in. Respect for the country, your country, respect for law enforcement, respect for elders. Just in general, respect all the way around.
So what about, did it change any of your, emotional, status?
No, I wouldn't say I changed in that aspect, but just I have more respect, more than anything.
How were you able to stay in touch with your family?
We didn't have cell phones back then and whatnot, so basically you pick up a payphone and you call home, collect.
Did that get
Hopefully
expensive?
they'll accept the charges when you call.
Did that get expensive on their part or your part?
It was on my parents' part. I would call them collect, especially in Germany. It was pretty expensive from overseas calling back.
What was the highest rank you achieved?
I started as an E1 and made it to an E4 specialist.
Did you go anywhere when you were on leave?
I came back home here. We had, like I said, we had weekends off, so there's a group of us went up in California. We went up to Sierra Summit and went skiing up there, a weekend here, a weekend there, something just to get out. Or we'll spend the night or the weekend over at a sergeant's house who lived off base just to get off base for a while.
Do you have one of a memory that stuck with you that you'll never forget?
Oh, I would be one time, one of me and my friends, we were off base staying at one of my sergeant's houses, and we went over to the grocery store to pick some more adult beverages up. And as we were crossing the street, a car stopped and jumped out, and me being a Nebraska boy didn't realize what was going on. But it ended up being some gangbangers jumped out and pulled a gun out on us. And the guy I was with took off running, and I stood there not knowing what am I supposed to do. And then he yelled at, he's a half block down, yelling at me to run. So I took off and ran, but good thing they never shot. But when we saw some police down the road and we kind of reported what was happening there. But yeah, we had a gun pulled out on us just going to the grocery store.
Jeez. And where was that at?
In California.
California. Do you remember the day that your service ended?
Very well. I was at Fort Lewis, Washington, and everything, all my stuff was turned in. I was just waiting for my ride to the airport, and then all my unit was marching by me at the time. I was sitting outside the barracks waiting, and they all stood there, or I stood there as they all had to go march by, and it was almost a tearjerker, you know, because you miss your friends and stuff, but they were trying not to look, but you got some of them that kind of would give you a nod as they walk by. They're trying to stay focused so they wouldn't get in trouble. You'd have a bunch of people on the end that would sit there just kind of give me a nod or give me a wink or something like that. So.
Did you, like, after you got home, did you want to go back?
Yeah, when you're in, what got me was when you're in and you come back on leave, you have the time of your life. And you miss your friends at home. Of course, you miss your family and your friends, but you have the best time in the world. And then, so when you're in, you're thinking, when you go back, you're like, oh, I'm missing out on so much, not realizing they're just having fun with you while you're back, just because you're back. You know, once you get out, and it's just like an everyday job, everyday thing. So when I was in, I wanted out because I thought I was missing out. But then when I got out, I realized, you know, I really wasn't missing out on much. I wish I would have stayed in, you know. So if I had to do it all over again, I would have probably made a career out of it, knowing what I know now.
Mm-hmm. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Oh, I support them. I've always supported the military. I was a Navy brat growing up. Both my parents were in the Navy. My dad was retired Navy. So I've had nothing but respect for the military in general. But after serving, you just know more about it, what's going on, what the behind the scenes stuff, what they do, and you know, more than what a civilian would know. So you have more respect for the people in.
So when you were there, when you first got there, was it hard to sleep?
It was at basic because you're sleeping in a room with 60-something other people, you know, bunks right next to each other, right down the line and stuff, and then somebody's buffing the floor the entire night. So that's something we had to do during basic. So yeah, it was always hard to sleep, and you're constantly worried about it. Did I do everything right for the next day? Getting your boots shined, getting your uniforms pressed and everything. So making sure everything's right for the next day. And then you're trying to sleep and you got a buffer going. Your friends are over here snoring or whatever. So and you weren't in your own bed. It's always tough.
What was a typical day like for you?
I would get up. We'd do PT in the morning. Get done. They send you back. You take your shower. You get dressed in your BDUs. You do a formation right about 7 o'clock, 7:30, whenever they say formation, whenever they tell you to get there. And then after formation, you go about your day, whether you're doing training with the infantry, or if you're training somewhere, or if we're working in the motor pool. Usually Mondays were motor pool days and stuff, so most of us would go get our vehicles ready in the motor pool and whatnot.
How do people entertain themselves, like just during the day, not really like on the weekend?
I think more or less during the day, everybody bought stereos. Stereos was the big thing at that time. You know, you had to see how many decks you would have, big speakers. So everybody, all in the barracks, the music was blasting and stuff. And movies, you go to movies or whatnot. You know, and another thing I did, my unit had a softball team, so I played on the softball team and whatnot.
Was that just like a weekend thing, or that was
during the week? We'd have a games during the week, and we'd go practice and stuff, just like regular, like you go to track practice, and then you go have a game. That's what we did. We play other units around the base and stuff.
How was the food there?
It wasn't as bad as people think. The MREs, when you're out and you're doing training and you're not around the cafeteria or the mess hall or whatever the people want to call it, when you're out and about, you have to eat MREs and stuff like that. And yeah, you get pretty much tired of eating that. But if you're in the mess hall, like in the mornings, they make you an omelet. You can have a ham and cheese omelet or however you want your omelet and stuff. But it's not like, you know, the Air Force would probably have steak and prime rib. I don't know what they do, what they eat, but It wasn't as bad, you know, we had choices of what we wanted and stuff.
So was the food from boot camp and like just being there different?
Boot camp, it's pretty much if you put it on your plate, you better eat it type thing. Is when we get to your unit and stuff, it's just, you know, if you don't eat it, you don't eat it. You're not rushed. In boot camp, you're rushed to eat. You gotta eat fast, get going. You know, if you're at the cafeteria, 90% of the time, then we were always doing something, so we had MREs to eat or something.
Tell me about like your officers and like the people ranked higher than you.
Again, it's all respect. You respect the higher rank. You always respect the higher rank. From the E5 or even in a corporal is an E4 as a specialist. They're both E4s, but a corporal is considered an NCO, non-commissioned officer. So from there up, you always respect the rank.
Did you keep any like personal diary or like write letters home?
No, I wrote letters home quite a bit, but to mom and dad, but I don't know if they saved them or not.
So when you got back home, what did you do like after?
When I got out and got back home, I got a job back at Bonneville Homes there, and took night classes to become an EMT. And I got my certificate, but I never did anything with it.
So then what did you do after that?
Pretty much worked. I stayed working. Took some classes here and there, but just never did anything with them.
And when you were in the military, did you take any college classes?
No, I didn't. We didn't have time. We were always in training, so we really didn't have the time to set up class schedules and stuff to do it.
Is there anything that you want to add that we haven't covered, like anything?
Well, I think you should probably join the military. I think it'd be a great thing for you.
Okay.